That road is HOA property now, Mr. Davidson. Your back 40 is officially landlocked. You should have thought of that before you parked your unsightly truck in your own driveway. The words hung in the air, thick and stifling, more like a threat than a statement. Karen Miller, newly appointed president of the Whispering Pines Estates Homeowners Association, stood there with her hands planted firmly on her wide hips, wearing a floral print muumuu that stretched over a body that had clearly never met a salad it liked. Her hair, a helmet of golden-streaked blondness, was so stiff with hairspray it could probably withstand a hurricane. Behind her, shimmering in the mid-afternoon heat, stood the monstrosity of a wall that had just sealed my fate. A 6-foot-tall, cinder-block monstrosity that ran for 100 yards in either direction, cutting off the dirt road I'd been using for 20 years to access the back half of my property. This wall wasn't just a barrier, it was a declaration of war. My property, my future, my livelihood all had been walled off by the arrogance of someone who couldn't see past her own privilege. I had spent the last 24 years in the Marine Corps building a life of discipline and integrity. But now, standing on my own land, I felt the cold fury settle over me. This was no longer about property or bylaws, this was about principle, and Karen had just crossed a line. "You can't just wall it off," I said, my voice low and calm like I had been taught in the heat of battle. "That's a county-recorded easement. It's been my legal access since I bought this land." She scoffed, that laugh of hers harsh and dismissive. "Oh, Mr. Davidson, you military types are all the same. You think rules don't apply to you. The developer's new plat supersedes your old papers. This is HOA property now. And next spring we'll have a lovely butterfly garden here. It's all been approved." A butterfly garden. I was losing my livelihood, my business, my future. Also, Karen could plant a few flowers. The absurdity of it took my breath away for a moment. I had a contract to deliver 50 cords of seasoned oak to a resort up north in 3 weeks. $30,000 I was now at risk of losing. My equipment, my contracts, everything I had worked for now out of reach because of this woman's insistence on playing the role of some petty monarch in a beige-painted kingdom. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a direct attack on everything I had built. The wall was a declaration of war, and war is what she was going to get. But I wasn't going to fight with my fists or my anger. I was going to fight with the one thing that had always seen me through cold, calculated strategy. This fight wasn't about fighting dirty, it was about fighting smart. I wasn't just some old man with a stubborn streak. I had trained in battlefields across the world. And if Karen thought she could take me down with bureaucracy and lies, she had no idea what kind of war she had just started. My first move, diplomatic, of course. The calm before the storm. But Sarah, my wonderful wife, ever the voice of reason, urged me to attend the HOA meeting. "Go in there, Marcus. Be calm, professional, firm. Lay out the facts. They can't ignore a legal document." Bless her heart, she still believed in the goodness of people. But after everything I'd seen in my life, I knew better. I agreed to give them one shot, but deep down I knew it was a waste of time. This wasn't a fight for reason, it was a fight for survival. The HOA meeting took place in a brand new clubhouse, sterile and beige just like everything else in Whispering Pines. It reeked of freshly painted walls and empty promises. There were about 30 homeowners, all looking as anxious as the chairs they were perched on. At the front of the room, Karen was in full control like a drill sergeant commanding her troops. The meeting went as I expected. She rattled off rules and bylaws, all absurd, but what stuck out was the sheer arrogance she oozed. When I stood up to address the wall that had been erected on my land, Karen's eyes narrowed in annoyance. I held up my deed, 20 years of legal documentation, and calmly explained how the wall was blocking my legal easement. Karen just smiled, her predatory grin taking over her face. She turned to Bob, the nervous-looking treasurer, and asked him to put up the official plat. What followed nearly knocked the wind out of me. The plat showed my access road as part of the HOA common area. No mention of the easement. My legal right of access had been erased, simply disappeared by a sleight of hand I never saw coming. It was a bald-faced lie. But Karen delivered it with such conviction that it almost seemed like it could be true. The deed I held in my hand irrelevant according to her. The new plat was the law now. And just like that, she had stolen my access, my future, and my business. I walked out of that meeting speechless. I had expected a fight, but this was something else. Karen wasn't just ignoring the law, she was rewriting it. She had the audacity to lie, to manipulate her way into seizing my land. But she didn't know who she was up against, and I wasn't going to take this lying down. I headed straight to the county records office. With the help of Sarah, I started digging through old deeds records and transaction history. And when I found it, the original deed from 1923, it was like a light bulb had gone off. The easement was there carved in stone. This wasn't just about land. This was about history, about a legal right that had existed for nearly 100 years, a right that no HOA, no Karen Miller could erase. The next step was to find someone who could help me turn this paperwork into power. That's when I found George Peterson, an old surveyor who had more disdain for HOAs than I had for bad coffee. George's analysis confirmed what I had suspected. Karen had built her house right in the middle of a legal easement, the road that had been blocked. It wasn't just any road, it was my road. The red line that George had traced on the map ran straight through her living room. I wasn't going to back down. Karen had built her empire on lies and arrogance, but now it was my turn. I gathered a group of neighbors, all of us fed up with her rules, her fines, her control. We formed an alliance, a quiet rebellion, and we prepared for battle. It was time to fight back, not with anger, but with the law. I hired Ben Carter, a sharp young lawyer who had a personal vendetta against bullies. We filed the lawsuit challenging Karen and her HOA. We demanded justice not just for me, but for every homeowner who had been crushed under Karen's boot. The war that started with a wall had now escalated. The HOA fought back with arrogance, but the truth was on our side. In the end, it was Karen's own words that sealed her fate. During her deposition, she swore under oath that there were no easements on her property. But we had her locked in a lie so blatant it was impossible to ignore. The final blow came when we filed a motion for the survey. The court ordered that a surveyor come out and mark the easement. And when the surveyor arrived, it was Karen's house that stood in the way. The red line of the easement ran straight through her living room. And when the surveyor had to enter her home to complete the job, it was the end of her reign. Karen Miller had spent months terrorizing this neighborhood using rules and lies to crush everyone in her path. But in the end, the very thing she had tried to destroy became her undoing. She had built her house on my road, and now she had to pay the price. The lawsuit was filed, the HOA was dismantled, and Karen was personally liable for the damage she had caused. The settlement came swiftly. The HOA paid for the wall to be torn down, for the road to be restored, and for my lost income. Karen's house. It was sold, the proceeds used to pay back the families she had hurt. And so peace returned to Whispering Pines. But I couldn't help but smile as I drove past Karen's old house, now a family's new home. The battle had been long, but justice had been done. And as I drove back to the back 40, the smell of fresh pine filling the air, I couldn't help but think about one thing. Never ever build your house on another man's road.